Well, good morning. We're going to look at the last part of chapter 5 in the Sermon on the Mount, and just a little bit of a review on the outline of Sermon on the Mount. It starts with the Beatitudes or blessings, looking at kind of an upside down view of what the world thinks that we should have. So, for example, the world thinks if you're rich, that you've got it made. Well, Jesus says, no, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of God. So those that don't have it together, those that are dependent, those that are mourning, those that are in pain, those that are being persecuted, those are the ones who are blessed. He says the law and the prophets, remember we talked about not one least stroke of the pen, a jot or a tittle will be taken from the law. Jesus didn't come to get rid of the law, but to fulfill it. In fact, Jesus, as we saw last week, makes it clear that his understanding of the law, after all, he is God, he's the one that wrote it, ultimately, is even more deep than we would. So when we think of murder, we just think of killing somebody. Well, when Jesus thinks of murder, he thinks of you hurting them with your thoughts or your words. Adultery, we looked at. We think of adultery as physical contact with a person. Jesus thinks of it as even adulterous thoughts. Divorce, again, divorce in their eyes for anything and everything. Jesus doesn't permit divorce in any case, except for adultery. So, and then oaths, and oaths are a big deal. Because again, we think people say oaths all the time. They make promises. I'm going to do this or that. So help me God. And then they forget them and don't do them. Well, with Jesus and with God, if you're going to say you're going to do something and you use an oath, you would rather die than not do it. I mean, it's very serious. So Jesus just simply says, let your yes be yes and your no be a no. Don't even take an oath. Retribution or judgment, we easily judge people. Jesus says, good grief, we can't even know what's in a person's thoughts, let alone how do we think we can judge based on mere appearances? And then today we're going to look at the last one, loving your neighbor. What does that mean? Love your enemy. And everything that goes with that. And then we'll pick up on chapter 6. I think we should be able to get through. There's a section on praying and the Lord's Prayer, fasting, and then giving. So those are all outward expressions of our good works. And I want to call them habits that we can get into that are beneficial for God's kingdom. So I'll just read this through and then we'll look at it. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven. For he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even tax collectors do the same? And if you greet only your brothers, what more are you doing than others? Do not even the Gentiles do the same? You therefore must be perfect, or the actual Greek word for perfect here is telos, remember, like a telescope. So it's the goal. So you therefore must be at the goal, or at the completion, perfect, as your heavenly Father is at the goal. I mean, he is also perfect. Yeah, for us, but that is where we want to ultimately be. So where does this come from? You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor. Where's that in the Bible? Anyone remember? Okay, it's a summary of the second half of the law. So the first half of the law is love God. The second, of course, that would be, you shall have no other gods before me. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God. remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. That's all about loving God. Well, the second half of the law, you shall not, or you remember, honor your father and your mother, that you may live long upon the earth. That would be the second part of the law, loving your neighbor. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not, which one? Bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, his manservant, ox, donkey, or anything that belongs to your donkey. So that's all about neighbor. This particular commandment, you shall, or love your neighbor as yourself.
Jesus brought that up.
Yeah, he does. And it comes from Leviticus chapter 19, verse 18, the book of the Bible that no one wants to read, because it says sacrifice this and cut blood like this and test people for skin diseases like this. But Leviticus also has the very famous love your neighbor as yourself. Beautiful words that summarize the second table of the law, as we often call it. So, but where does this part come? You've heard it said, love your neighbor as yourself and hate your enemy. Where does hate your enemy come from?
I have no idea.
Well, I think Jesus makes a good point. You've heard it said.
Yeah.
You've not heard it written. Because yes, it is written, you should love your neighbors yourself. But people add to the love your neighbors. In other words, yeah, you can love your neighbor, but you don't have to love your enemy.
I love my enemy and drive me crazy.
Oh, yeah, your enemies drive you crazy. Yeah. So the enemies, this is an excuse to treat your enemy poorly, but this isn't biblical.
No.
In fact, when you're in school, I remember as a kid that, well, do unto others as you would do to them, except for the ones you don't like.
Yeah.
The golden rule with the exception. No, do unto others as you do to them, and that includes everybody. You know,
But
or-
I do say once in a while that I love everybody, and I do. But there's some that are at the top of the list and some at the bottom.
see, again, all these sayings that we have.
Not supposed to do.
Yeah, it's so easy to do less for the ones that are bad. And I'll admit, are there people, and notice even Jesus points out, they are called enemies for a reason. Because they hurt us, they don't treat you well. There's a reason we call people bullies. But notice what Jesus says here, but I say to you, so this isn't just what other people are saying, but in Jesus, though, is the word of God. He says, love your enemies. Now, to read it from the Greek, he says, let me grab it real quick here. I say to you, or I speak to you over and over again. You could translate it that way. But I say to you, love. And he uses the word agape for love. You love over and over again your enemies. It's in the present tense, and that means it's a continual activity. So I could see people saying that, well, Jesus said, love your enemies. Well, I'll love them once, and if they don't do well back, then I'm going to hate them. No, he doesn't say that. He says, love them, love them. But he adds something to it. You don't just love them, but pray for them. Pray on behalf of the righteous.
Well, he says that God allows rain on the righteous as much as he does on the evil, as much as he does on the
Yeah.
righteous.
So pray on behalf of the ones that are persecuting you. So why would you pray for them?
try and get them better.
Yeah, because your loving them may not do enough. I mean, your love is good, but will it change them? Very well, probably not. So that's why we give these over to God as well. Elsewhere in the Bible, in both in the Psalms and in, I believe, Corinthians, it talks about those that persecute you to do good to them and thus heap burning coals upon their, because God will do the judging through the good that you do. So love your enemies over and over again and pray over and over again for those that persecute you. And this is interesting. I think the NIV translates this different, but so be sons of your Father, the one in the heavens. That's a literal translation again, and I pointed out this many times in Bible study, but why in the Bible is it almost always heavens and not heaven? Well, it's because God is in all three heavens.
Yeah.
The sky, space, and the place where he is. God is in all of this. So the Hebrew concept of heaven is all three of those places. So, and then it says, sons of the Father. Well, I'm looking at all of you, and we've got 4 women in this Bible study right now, and only 3 of us guys. So does that mean only the sons? No, by sons, remember, only the son is an inheritor. And so the scripture always speaks of sons, of both sons and daughters. It uses that one word for both because you're all inheritors of God. So that you may be these sons, part of his family, with your Father who's in heaven. Okay. For he makes the sun rise on, let's see, and he uses the word porneros on the evil ones and the good ones. So he makes it rise on both. Porneros, you can kind of hear the word pornography in it. The porno, the evil ones, and the good ones alike. So you can be really, really evil and still God makes the sun come up and go down. And so he actually cares about them. And then the second part of that phrase, and on the righteous ones and the unrighteous ones alike, he sends the rain. So believe it or not, even though we think Sioux City never gets snow, God has a way of giving it for the good and the bad. So that means just because you're in Des Moines and you get more snow doesn't mean you're in better shape than the people in Sioux City. Okay. Yeah. So, okay, now he kind of explains it in verse 46. For if you love those who love you.
Yeah.
If you love those, and he uses that word agape again, if you love those who love you, and he talks about you have a wage or pay. So when you love them, you're going to get paid here on earth is kind of the point. Right?
Yeah, it says what reward do you get?
Yeah.
So that's down here, I think.
So the reason I like to translate this instead of reward as pay, because oftentimes we think of what we do as getting I mean, you do work here on earth and you get money for it, or I guess you can call it a reward. And so if I do more good work, I should get more reward. Yeah. So, but the thing is, when it's somebody that loves you, you're going to get love back. I mean, even if you're not even good at the love, you're going to get love back because they're that way. So the tax collectors who are just plain evil most of the time, they love the people that love them too. If you scratch my back, I will scratch yours back. Yeah, of course it works that way, but it's so hard to do it for those that don't care for us. Well, look right here in Sioux City. What do we got going on in the news this week? You got the school board and Dr. Gossman at odds with each other. And it's just, boy, it's hard for them to love each other. And I think there's been some bad blood that's gone on in those meetings from what I've gathered. And but it's, as a Christian, we have to, it's easy to point fingers at that example because they're in the public. But do we look at our own lives and our own meetings and with people and say, wow, it's easy to do it when people are nice to us, but to show love undeservingly is
Even
tough.
in your own family. You
Yeah.
have
We've got that. And I'm not saying it's easy. Not at all. But that's what Jesus is getting at. There's no reward when it's easy. Or because obviously everyone does that anyway. Even unbelievers do it. This is interesting. I did look this up because if you greet only your brothers, and the word is for the word greeting, it'd be kind of like, sometimes I'll go in the hospital and I'll say good morning or good afternoon or whatever when I walk in, and I'll say hello to everybody in the halls. Most of the time that doesn't happen. It is like quiet. You're walking down the hall of the hospital and everybody's doing their own thing and drumming to their own beat. Walking to their own drummer's beat, and they could care less that you're even there. But of course, when you see somebody you know, what do? Yeah, you go, hey, it's good to see you, so-and-so, because they're yours. But when it's somebody you don't know so well, or maybe you don't like them, it's easy just to let, yeah.
And let's go back quick.
Yeah. But I found, I don't know how many stories I've heard of people after greeting them and being kind to these person, maybe that person's had such a bad day and they needed that. And notice he says, do not even the Gentiles do the same. The Greek word for Gentiles here is ethnikoi. And you can hear the ethnic people, we use that word. Do not the Gentiles or the ethnic people they are doing over and over again the same thing.
Mine to pagans.
Yeah. Or pagans, yeah, that would be accurate. So then verse 48, so be over and over again, therefore, you. And we usually translate that perfect, but notice when I read through it the first time, I said the meaning is more like at the goal or the completion. So be at this goal or be this perfect as your Father. And notice he says your Father, not some other father or some God way up in the sky, but he says your Father, the heavenly one, is complete or perfect as well. So we're doing is following in his footsteps. And so Jesus, notice what he's doing with all this. He's not getting rid of perfection. Remember, you're supposed to follow the law and the prophets. And so many people said, well, you don't need to follow that anymore. No, he says, yeah, you do. Follow that and be perfect, just like your Father is, because he wants us to have a better life. Because if we just do what everybody else does, you're going to have a so-so life. But if you follow the Lord's way, you're going to have the best life that you can possibly have here on the planet. It doesn't mean it's always going to be easy, but it's going to be following the plan that God has. So very interesting. So your Father, Your father could be dead. Your father could be a beast. But your heavenly Father wants you to have something very good. Okay. Chapter 6. See if we can find chapter 6. We'll continue reading here, and you're going to kind of see that that he's going to deal with these 3 areas of what I like to call habits. So ways that you can practice. So we're going to deal with our almsgiving, prayer, and then finally with fasting. And I'll admit, probably most of you aren't huge fasters, but Jesus actually deals with this particular one. I was going to bring along a picture of the nuns. You know, they wear that habit on their head. And again, a reminder of our habits in life. So where that comes from. Okay, so let's start with the almsgiving, or in modern English, giving to the needy. Okay, so he's going to deal with each one of these the same way. So, or take heed, further to not do the righteousness before people. And I think that's right. In the old King James, it said do before men, but it's really people here. It's the general word for all people, to be seen by them. So beware practicing your righteousness before other people in order to be seen by them, for then you will have, and again, I like to translate this pay. So you'll have no pay from your Father, the one in the heavens.
Let your left hand not know what your right hand.
Yeah. So it's, if you want to show off the good thing, well, what are righteous things? So here he's just talking in general. So any righteous thing you do, whether it be prayer or giving to the needy or reading or sharing the good news, if you're just showing other people how good you are, then you're going to get no reward or no pay for it. God could care less about that. Right now we're in the season of Epiphany, and Epiphany is all about God showing his light. God showing off. Here's Jesus born in Bethlehem. Here's the one baptized. Here's the one doing miracles. And you could say, wow, Jesus is doing a lot of showing off. Well, God's actually doing the showing off. He's showing the light. But if our goal in life is just showing off to other people, yeah, this is not of any benefit for us. It's purely for us. Why did God show his light to the world? Yeah, for our benefit. It's always for the benefit of the other. Okay, so now in verse 2, he gets specific, and I find it interesting. Maybe our translation's not very good here. We use the word almsgiving or giving to the needy, but literally he actually says it a little bit different. So it says, so when you do your mercy, so when you are doing mercy, isn't that kind of interesting? That's how the Bible describes giving to the it's showing mercy. Well, what is mercy?
Well, that means they must really be in trouble with it.
Yeah.
Mercy.
So mercy is something that you do for a person that doesn't deserve it. You have to cover over their sin in order to do it. Think about the homeless. A lot of the homeless people that I go down and see at the gospel mission, if you're really honest about it, probably most of them don't deserve any help. they've screwed up their life for, well, whether it be drugs, alcohol, or they've, it could be anything, abuse, maybe they mismanaged money. That it goes on and on, the reasons. They've stolen, they've been in jail, they can't get back on their feet. And I suppose there's probably one or two that don't deserve there, they just have a mental illness and that's just how it is. They can't ever get on their feet because they just can't. Well, when you give, what are you doing? You're showing mercy. You're getting off of your high horse because you probably don't deserve it to have what you have anyway. So you're giving to these needy, and he uses literally the word for trumpet here. Do not trumpet it